Welcome, 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 my Be Health Empowered family, to another episode of Excuse Me, Doctor 2025. We are here, y'all. Happy New Year. This is the first show out the gate. Delighted to be back. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Dr. Melissa Clark. You can call me Dr. Mel. We are here each and every week to make sure that you have the information that you need to make wise health decisions, not just for yourself, but also for your family as well as your community. If you're joining us for the first time, you're a newbie, consider yourselves now part of the Be Health Empowered family and know that we are here to answer your questions and concerns. So please make sure that you put them in the chat as we go through the show. And I'm going to ask y'all for a little favor. Please hit that like button if you're checking us out on Facebook and the subscribe button if you're checking us out on YouTube. Really, really, really appreciate you for that. And now, for those of you who are my returning Be Health Empowered family, you know that I cannot do this without my two incredible co-hosts, Miss Lila Mays and Mr. Wayne Bruce. Please come on camera and tell me how y'all doing.
Hey.
Well, we're here.
Yeah.
Woo!
Yep. I think more people feel like that because 2025 it's off to a bang.
It's off with a bang for sure.
trying to handle it, trying to guide it, steer it.
Right. I mean, it's already starting off with so many things.
Mhm.
Viruses, snowstorms, fires.
Yep.
Arctic burst. Man, what we gonna do? And we still gotta put in a person to run the country.
Oh, I don't even want to
Coming
think
very
about that.
soon. Coming very soon
Coming
in
to-
Washington, D.C.
Coming to Washington, D.C. very soon, huh? Aye. Okay.
Yeah.
We're gonna keep that moving though.
Thank you.
The views of Lila Mays are not the views of Excuse Me, Doctor Show.
Actually,
The
they may be.
Wayne Bruce.
Oh, we got the chat is cracking already. Let's rock. I'm ready to rock.
Well, all right. Well, on a serious note, though, we do want to send our deepest condolences to people who are in the midst of this crisis in LA. I can't even fathom what is happening. And I know, Lila, you're in the midst of it. We have many friends, relatives, loved ones who we just want to wrap our arms around and send our love to, and send donations. That's what we also should be doing. So
Yeah. You know, it's it's a lot to process when you're in the midst of it. We're sort of sandwiched in between a couple of these fires, and it is really, Melissa, like a suit of armor of stressors, because the wind picks up, the embers blow, another fire starts, then the winds die down. It's this cycle of like anxiety and despair, grief, and then hope and gratitude, and then the cycle starts again because the winds pick back up. But I just want to say thank you to everyone who has sent love to the West Coast. We are, those of us who've been here for a long time are really impacted. My sister and I went to elementary school in Pacific Palisades, so we're touched in all these different kinds of ways. So many core memories have been unlocked, and it has touched colleagues and really good friends. And so Wayne is going to put something up for folks to be able to click and support victims via donations and stuff. But Melissa, I want to come back to something that we talked about pre-production, and that is these Altadena fires in a historically Black neighborhood. And apparently that story isn't reaching a lot of folks nationwide. And so I don't know what you want to say about that, Mel, but I'm going to pass that off to you because I know it came up in our conversation.
Yeah. Well, I just just to acknowledge the fact that there are Black neighborhoods in LA.
Yeah.
Some people know them, some people don't, but Altadena in particular had always been a haven ever since the 1920s, 1930s,
Yeah.
1940s, and built a solid Black community, which is all gone now. And there are various fundraisers, online that are happening. But it's not just the disparity, I think, of what's happening with the loss of property. You also mentioned just a cycle of hope and despair.
Mhm.
And how is that affecting people who may already have mental health challenges, people who don't? It's not just going to be the property that needs to be built back, it's going to be spirits and souls
Right.
and hope and all the mental health wellness things that we talk about. That's also going to be a part of building back as well. I know right now that the healthcare system is overwhelmed, from the poor air quality to treating mental health emergencies, physical emergencies that are happening. Rehab facilities have been burnt down, so when doctors are ready, to discharge people from the hospital, they don't have anywhere to discharge them to. So lots of effects from a health perspective that have not even been touched on yet, and are just going to be a part of building back when this is all said and done. And I always want to make sure that the communities that are most vulnerable also get the resources to build back in all these various ways, not just financial, but from a health perspective as well.
Thanks.
So absolutely. And
Yeah.
Wayne, I think you have something to put up, or are you putting it up
Yeah,
on the
I
screen?
I put up the World Central Kitchen. Um, my man always is there to donate. They donate food. They've donated even through the kitchen. They donated clothing and money. They've been very generous with their time.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And your man is specifically Jose Andres, right?
Yeah, that's
Yeah. Yeah,
that's
your
like one of
man.
my favorite. I say
Yeah.
my man because he was here in DC and
Mm-hmm.
he had quite a few restaurants, and he also backed out of one of the restaurants. It's a historic move for him,
True.
and so he has been my man ever since. I love his food, but I love more that he is a humanitarian,
Man, he
Yes.
and
does the work. He really
he
does.
all
He
over the
does the
world,
work. Yeah.
all over the world.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so the QR code you see up, hopefully you can take your phone and go directly to that, and that's World Central Kitchen, and that's the donation QR code, and it'll take you right there with your phone.
Thank you. Thank you for doing that. We really want to highlight and lift that up. And I don't know if there is a good segue into the show after that, but
There's
because it's the beginning of the year, we wanted to set us up for success when it comes to health. And it
mm,
might
Mhm.
not be something you get to immediately out the starting gate,
mm,
especially if you live in the West Coast. But at some point in time, we want to make sure that everybody has a wellness roadmap for 2025. What are the checkups we're supposed to be getting? What are the preventive screenings? What are you supposed to do when you go to your provider to be the most well prepared, get the most out of it, to set you up for success in 2025. So
mhm.
that's what we're going to be hitting on tonight.
Yeah, but
All right.
before we do have a recap. I mean,
Yes,
we
we
do
do.
have that. Let's go to the recap. I had to do
We're
something.
excited about this recap,
I had,
y'all. I'm just saying.
I had
And
to
for the
do something,
newbies,
man.
yeah, and for the newbies who are joining the show, just so y'all know, we do this weekly recap. We pick like 3 burning issues in health news that you need to know. And that is our weekly recap. And here it is right here.
There we go.
Here
There
we
we go.
go. Well, is the next pandemic here, Dr. Mel? Because there's already been a death from the bird flu. down in Louisiana, I believe. And
Oh
then there's
wow.
the rise of the HMPV in China. What's up with this? Do we think we're on the brink of another pandemic?
So no need to worry. So that HMPV is a virus that is being reported in China. It's causing some hospitalizations, and people got very concerned because that's how COVID started. With hearing
Yeah.
about rises of hospitalizations in China. But the good thing is HMPV is a virus that's been around for a long time. You might have heard of RSV that causes a common cold. It's
Hmm.
kind of like a kissing cousin to RSV. And because it's been around for a long time, people have had a chance to have immunity. So, for the
Mm,
most part, unlike COVID, which was a brand new virus that nobody had ever had a chance to develop immunity to, HMPV, we got the antibodies already in our system because most people have been exposed. And so it's only a very small percentage of the population that's going to get pneumonia and end up in the hospital. So, not concerns for a pandemic. Bird flu. Okay, so bird flu H5N1, that's the name of the virus, is widespread in birds all over the world. And it is causing outbreaks in poultry as well as in U.S. dairy cows. And we've seen a few cases migrate from cows and birds to humans, specifically those that work in the dairy and poultry industry.
mm,
But the current public health risk to everybody is low because even though it spreads a lot within wildlife, it's
Hmm.
rare that it jumps to humans. And then the very key thing is we have not seen it jump from human to human. So you have
okay.
to be in touch with a bird or a cow to get it. So we do have to watch for signs of mutation, changing of the virus where it might be able to jump from human to human, but CDC is on top of it. They haven't seen it yet. And so for those reasons, stay away from dead birds, but
Oh,
no reason to panic and think about a pandemic at this point for
Wow.
okay.
either of these.
So that's a great thing
Yeah.
because the winter viruses are back with a vengeance, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
They are.
And I can think of several people, coworkers who, on the Zoom calls have been sniffing and coughing and, taking days off of work, people missing school. And it's not your imagination. Flu is on the rise. A lot of people end up in the hospital because of it. RSV is also on the rise, and COVID is starting to creep back up. Um, and we know, unfortunately, that they are, though, that combination of virus, especially for older people, are killing hundreds every week, people with pre existing
Wow.
conditions as well. So, just a reminder to take the precautions that we all know, but they probably are not top of mind because, we're no longer in the pandemic phase of these viruses. So
Right.
wash your hands. Remember the happy birthday song. Wash your hands often and for 20 seconds. Mask up if you're in a crowded place. It's not too late to get vaccinated against the flu or against COVID. Um, they don't provide 100% protection, but they provide significant protection, especially in keeping people out of the hospital, decreasing the spread, and decreasing the risk of getting long COVID. So a lot of people still haven't gotten these. It's not too late. And then finally, if you do have symptoms, please get tested. And it's important to get tested, one, so you know how long to isolate, right? For COVID, it's still 5 to 10 days. For RSV, it's 3 to 7 days, and same for the flu. So that's just off the bat, know what you got so you can know how long to isolate. Secondly,
Mm,
if it's flu, there's a treatment if you catch it within the first 3 days of symptoms, Tamiflu. You can get that, and it'll cut down on the amount of time you feel sick. And COVID, there's Paxlovid, which you can take, and that will not only cut down on the symptoms and make you less infective sooner, but it also cuts down on the risk of long COVID. So if you have symptoms, please get tested.
Get tested.
all right.
Yeah.
All right, La. So what we
You're
got
up,
next?
Wayne.
I'm up, La.
Yes.
I was I hate to take two in a row,
I know
but
you
here we
do.
go. Look, my community of friends have been in an uproar about what the Surgeon General said about alcohol and cancer. So for the most part, alcohol is associated with good times, fun, stress reduction. But what might change with that, Dr. Mel?
So you hit it when you talked about the U.S. Surgeon General. Dr. Murty is his name. He put out a report linking alcohol to a higher risk for 7 types of different cancers, and really is pushing for a warning label to be put on alcoholic beverages, making that link to cancer. So basically, a cancer warning label on every bottle of alcohol, because it appears that what most people don't know is it has the same risk for cancer as smoking does. And we know that tobacco has warning labels, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So doctors are really in favor of this because, the medical profession has known this for a while. The fact that alcohol consumption on any level, not just heavy alcohol use or addictive alcohol use, is associated with this risk factor for cancer.
Wow.
Wow.
So you're probably wondering what cancers they are. So, cancers
Man.
of the mouth, the throat, the voice box or larynx, the esophagus, the liver, the colon, and the breast, especially in women. So, a lot of people, again, don't make that association between alcohol and cancers, especially breast cancer. But there is
Right.
a definite association in terms of increased risk.
So I read somewhere that 60% of adults drink. Is there a safe level of drinking as it relates to cancer?
No, not really. But the more you drink, the higher the risk, right? So there was a 2020 study that was done among women, and the risk of developing an alcohol related cancer in your lifetime. It's 17% for those people who drink less than 1 drink a week, but it shoots up to 22% for those who consume 2 drinks a day. So somewhere in between that, is probably where most people consume. And for men, the risks are a little bit lower than for women. The risks are 10% if you consume less than 1 drink a week, and 13% if you drink 2 drinks or more a day. Um, the good news is we know that the younger generation, people under 35, are drinking less. Now, that could be because they're using other substances, but whatever the reason, they're drinking less alcohol. But people 55 and older, many of whom might be listening in our listening audience, your peers are drinking more compared to a similar peer group 10 years ago. So important to note.
Wow.
I have some contributing factors, but I'll keep it to myself.
What was that? What's that, Lila?
Well, like elections and pandemic,
Mm.
like there's been some stuff over
Mhm.
the last 10 years that's been crazy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Some
Absolutely.
of the boards I sit on contribute.
Yeah. And not just that, it's the availability of the 24/7 news, which is terrible. Like, so if you're consuming a steady diet of news via traditional news media or social media, it used to be we used to be able to turn that off.
Right.
But no more. It's there. It's everywhere. If you pick up your phone, if you turn on TV, whatever, radio. So yeah, it's just a lot more things to stress you out.
Yeah, that's a good point, Mel.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
All right. Recap.
So what y'all we gonna
What y'all think?
just to hear that.
It's my favorite thing. So, didn't get out in the streets today to ask the people, but today's what y'all think is the Surgeon General's warning about alcohol and cancer likely to change how much you drink? We're really curious about that, folks. So maybe drop an answer, a response, a
Just
comment in the chat.
all y'all, even the doctors who are on right now. I see a couple doctors out there that I know. Is it gonna change? And do you drink if you're a doctor?
Oh, trust and
Oh,
believe.
What's
Trust
the
and believe. The medical community is all in for
Oh
drinking.
wow.
from the drinking. But you know
Yeah.
what, Dr. Mel, in the recap, you made a really good point, and I'm going to answer this question because I have been I've been hearing this from the Surgeon General, but I think if a label gets slapped on some
Mm.
alcoholic beverages, that may cause me in particular to take a little more pause. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I do. I think
Yeah.
if you see a label, a reminder about how it can
Mhm.
impact your health, I think there might be something there.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know what the correlation is, but we do know that tobacco use went way down after they put warning labels in. I don't know if it was the warning label that made it go down or what
Hmm.
other factors might have been at play, but there has definitely been a significant decrease in smoking in the country. And I think it also might make a difference for people who've had these cancers who are
Mm,
survivors in terms of how they start thinking about their risk of recurrence in terms
right.
of you know in terms of what they consume and what they put in their body. So you know
Yeah,
but I want to know what the chat is saying. So
for sure.
Well,
Somebody said
I'm
maybe.
just gonna tell you, Michelle Walker Scales. She said maybe, and then she said, so that means maybe, maybe not. We know what that
perhaps.
is.
Right.
Perhaps it
Perhaps. All
could
right.
happen. I doubt
Well,
it.
throw y'all's thoughts in there, and we'll jump right into planning our roadmap for wellness, which might include changing our alcohol consumption for
It might.
2025.
Hmm.
It
So
just might.
so let's jump into it, Dr. Mill. I'll start it off. You know, every year we go through this, and everybody says get a checkup. Why are yearly checkups important?
So this is the bottom line. Preventive screenings really help people recognize health problems early. And the earlier you recognize something, the sooner you can do something about it. And the more effective whatever you do about it is going to be than if it goes down the line. So that's really, it's just a matter of keeping on top of your health, just like you might keep on top of anything else in your life. So, we also know that that's from a health standpoint. From a financial standpoint, it makes sense because the later something progresses
Hmm.
is the more you might end up in the
Mhm.
hospital, you might end up in days out of work. It might affect your livelihood and your family. So again, it's also not just about you, it's about your loved ones, those people that you support and take care of, either financially or from an emotional standpoint. You want to be there for them. And
Hmm.
so I think that's also another reason to keep on top of your preventive screenings as well.
Okay. So if I'm going in for a preventive visit, what do I need to do to prepare for it?
So you really want to, um, you know, kind of have a checklist of things that you do to prepare. So one is to make sure that you have your necessary information and necessary documents. So what does that entail? Bring your
Hmm.
insurance card and your ID. Then you want to make sure you have a list of your medications, whatever they are. If you don't want to write it down, just throw all the pill bottles in a bag, bring it with you. You want to kind of know something about, have you had surgeries, and you want to know about your medical history
Hmm.
so that you can convey that to the provider.
Hmm.
And then it's probably good to also just write down any recent health changes that you might have noticed.
Mhm.
Have you noticed that you're coughing more, or that your right knee hurts a little bit more when you walk up the stairs, or that you have some low back pain now? So anything that is new, that's come up and that you want addressed, it's probably good to write that down and make sure that you integrate it into you include it in the things that you bring up to the doctor.
Okay.
So, Dr. Mill, you said that folks should make a list of the medications they're taking and to prepare for their doctor visit. Why is that so important? Um,
So key.
Including the dosages and all of that. Why is that so important?
Yeah, very key because number one, it's always good to have a review of your medications,
Mm,
especially if you have different people who've written those medications for you and might not have been thinking about how they might interact with each other. So
mm,
that preventive visit is a good time to sort of reset, do a medication review with the provider that you're seeing, make sure that there are no interactions, make sure that they're the right dose. Because if you've gained weight or lost weight since the last
mm,
time those medicines were written, you might need a higher dose or a lower dose. It's important to, like I said, if you're jotting down anything that is a new health symptom, that provider can then look at what you're concerned about, let's say problem sleeping, and then look at that list of medications and see
mm.
could that be a side effect of the medicines. So it's a
Right.
really integral part of that whole wellness visit.
It's really important, and it comes up every time. And I know I have been in the doctor's office scrambling, like, I take this, I take that. I don't know, 5 milligrams, maybe 10. So
Right.
I get to
Well,
be an adult and stop guessing at my my dosages.
the other thing you can do, two things. Typically there's like a provider portal
Oh
Yeah.
that
yeah, they always
doctors have
have.
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
should have your medications in it.
Hmm.
Um, but like I said, if another doctor from another practice writes you a medicine, it might not be in there.
Right.
So if you have one pharmacy that you get your medicines from,
Hmm.
you can just
Hmm.
ask them to print you out a list or email you a list or whatever so that you have the most up to date version of what you're supposed to be taking.
Oh, that's a really good idea. I've never considered having a printout from the pharmacy.
Oh
But
Hmm.
yeah.
you said something I think is really two really important things. I use my health portal for everything. I just got some lab results this morning.
Hmm.
Um, to look at my doctor's notes, to certainly go in and check what my scripts are and dosages when I'm not scrambling in the doctor's office, even though I
Hmm.
can't do it.
Yes.
So Dr. Mill, if I'm looking for a new doctor, and someone who, I want to look for the best doctor for me. I want them to be on the health journey with me. When I'm getting to know my doctor, how can I gauge their attention span and listening skills? You've spoken about how important that is. How do we gauge that?
Yeah, I think that's so important. I get the number one complaint I get, and in terms of listening, to people and their concerns about their provider, is they don't listen to me. They don't get me. They talk over me. And so I often say, choosing a provider is like going on a date. You really need to be evaluating them and
Mm,
to make sure that this person is respectful of you, is culturally humble, and is a good listener, right?
yes.
And so you want to assess, when you're talking to them, are they listening to you? Are they cutting you off?
Mm,
Um, what is their attention span? Do they seem to be, focused on something else when you're trying to
mm,
talk to them? Do they show compassion when you're talking to them? Do they respond as a human versus a bot?
mhm,
And then for some people, it's really important to be able to go to a chiropractor or go to an acupuncturist or do yoga or a
mhm,
therapeutic massage. And so you want to make sure that your practitioner is open and knows about these things and is supportive, as opposed to judgmental. Um, it's also good when you're listening to them. Are they talking to you in plain language?
yeah.
Right.
Because
Right.
a lot of times providers talk over you because the shorthand that they use to communicate with each other is easier. But I often say it takes a lot of skill and thought to try to translate what a provider, medical terms into plain language so
Hmm.
that you can be understood. That's the purpose of communication. Com means with, unification. We're on the same page, right?
Hey, come on, Doc.
Come on
Right?
now.
And then shared decision making. So that's sort of a term that we use in healthcare which is a new movement that started really, it should have been forever, but really just about 10, 15 years ago. There's really emphasizing to providers, look, there's generally never just one way to do things. There's always an option. Even doing
Mhm.
nothing is an option. And you should go over that with the person, with the patient, and understand what are their priorities. Their priorities should dictate what the treatment plan is, because they're going to be the ones who have to live with it, right? So
Mhm.
they have to understand the pros and the cons, but still the patient should, if there are choices, the patient should be participating in that. So is your provider talking to you in a way that they're involving you in the decision making, or are they dictating it's my way or the highway?
Right.
And then the
Okay.
last thing is, if you ask them a question and they don't know, do they blow it off, or do they say, hey, I don't know the answer to that, let me get back to you, right?
Mm.
um, because I think, again, that's important in communication and establishing trust and respect.
I have been so blessed with my primary care physician that she's attentive and
Mhm.
approachable. But I have to say that I have had the more insensitive care from my dentist's office than on like my medical visit. So be
Mm,
health empowered family, same for your dentist. They get to
that's true.
listen. They get to be have some bedside manner, all of
Mhm.
those things, especially when they're working in your mouth.
Mhm.
I
Yep.
think that's hugely
Yep.
important. Okay, so my doctor actually just ordered some labs and tests. So how do I know um, how they're deciding what to order?
Yeah. So what they decide to order has a lot to do with you and what you tell them.
Mm,
So it's part of that, that I should have said when you talk about your medical history, is also your family history.
right.
So if you know your family history, some people don't because they're adopted, or for whatever reason. Maybe their parents are deceased; they just don't have that available to them. But if you do know your family history, so you can communicate that to your doctor. It's important to know if you have first degree relatives. So that means mother, father, basically parents or siblings
Mhm.
who have certain health conditions that are inherited. The
Sure.
risk is inherited. So, for example, high blood pressure or diabetes or certain types of cancer. You need to
Hmm.
be able to convey that to your doctor so your doctor knows what to look for, what kind of tests to get. The other thing that they go on is your lifestyle. What are your risks based upon your habits? So, smoking, we talked about drinking, whether you exercise or not, what your diet's like, your sexual history. Um, all these things are important to discuss with your doctor so they know what sorts of tests to order for screening tests. The other thing is, what kind of job do you do? Some people do high risk jobs where they might have exposure to environmental toxins or have occupational hazards. That's important to share. And then finally, it might be obvious to some, but not necessarily to others. What is your race and your ethnicity? That is can also play a role. So, for example, Black men get prostate cancer at earlier ages. So it's important for Black men that they start getting the screening for prostate cancer earlier, in earlier in life in general. So these are some of the things that providers look at to decide what kind of test to order, um, and what kind of screening test to get.
Okay.
Okay. So we have a. I just want to jump to this because I want this because this is very relevant to where we are now. Jelana Cryer asks, "What should be checked at a yearly exam, like every year? Like, what are the
Hmm.
standards that should be checked?"
So it kind of depends on your age.
Okay,
So if we would
so let's break it down.
Shalana, okay, all right.
So, what are the tests that should be considered for people under 40? Should
Okay.
they be getting on a yearly basis?
All right. So let's talk about adults 18 to 40,
Okay.
or 18 to 39. Let's say 18
Okay.
to 39. So everybody, men and women, should be getting their blood pressure checked. And that's generally every 2 years, but every
Mm-hmm.
year wouldn't hurt. They should be getting their cholesterol screened every 5 years, starting at age 20, or
Mm.
sooner if they have risk factors, meaning they might have a family history of very high cholesterol. Believe it or not, there's a disease called familial hypercholesterolemia, where high cholesterol runs in your family and it's very, very high. So if you have that, you might want to get it checked more often. Diabetes, if you're overweight or obese, um, you should be getting screened for diabetes in that age group.
Mm-hmm.
um, Sexually transmitted infections. So you should be getting screenings based on sexual activity. If you're sexually active, you should be getting screened for HIV, for example. And then mental health screenings, very important. Your provider should be asking you at least 2 questions related to your mental health to assess whether you have anxiety or depression. And then if you're a woman, um, and you have a family history of breast cancer or the mutations associated, the gene variations associated with breast cancer, you should be starting mammograms potentially as early as age 30, but you have to discuss it with your provider again if you have that family history. And women should be getting cervical cancer screenings every 2 to 3 years, starting at age 21. Um, and then men specifically should be getting testicular cancer screenings. So that's basically examination of your testicles to make sure there are no lumps or bumps. You might have heard of Lance Armstrong, the famous cyclist who developed testicular cancer. That's the age group. We don't see it in people over age 40. We actually see it in that age group the most.
Wow.
So those are the things for the age 18 to 40.
Okay.
Um, okay, and then what are the most important screenings vaccines for Gen X?
All
And Gen
right.
X, that's a very specific age group, right? So
Well,
is it
Yeah.
what is
Well,
it?
let's say
45.
age 40 to let's say 40 to
59.
64.
Yeah, like
64.
64, exactly.
Yeah. So, um so blood pressure, cholesterol, diabetes, mental health, same as 18 to 40.
Mhm.
What changes once you get to be age 40 is colon cancer screenings. Those should start at age 45 if you have average risk. Um, uh, and possibly early if you have a family history of colon cancer.
Mm-hmm.
For women, we talked about breast cancer as early as age 30, but if you're average risk, then you should be starting at age 40 to get
Yeah.
mammograms every 1 to 2 years. And then for men, specifically men who are at risk for prostate cancer, this is when you should start to get your prostate cancer screenings. And who's at risk? We talked about Black men.
Mm-hmm.
um, then, if you also have a first degree relative, so we talked about first degree relative or your parents or your siblings who've had prostate cancer, you should be starting at age 40. Or if you have a BRCA gene mutation. Now, a lot of people don't know this because they associate the BRCA gene mutation or variation with breast cancer. But if you're a
I was just
man
about to say that.
and it runs in your family and you get tested for it, then you're also at higher risk for prostate cancer.
Yep.
So, so you
So,
should start at age 40, but if you have none of those things, start at age 50 for prostate cancer screening.
so the bracket, that's very important because we hear about BRCA genes with women all the
Yeah.
time, and we never
Right.
hear about it with men. And
Yep.
look, lo and behold, if your sister, your auntie, or your mama may have had breast cancer, it's important that you get tested for the BRCA gene. Correct?
Right. Exactly. And then as a result, if you're positive, start your prostate cancer screenings at age 40
Mm,
as opposed to age 50.
wow.
Yeah.
what are
I'm in
consider?
that.
Go ahead.
I'm in that Gen Z pocket. So I started having mammograms when I was 40, but I have high risk screenings. So I had the fun opportunity to have an MRI on Friday,
Oh
Oh,
wow.
wow.
face down with the
Mhm.
tatas. That was
Mm-mm.
really fun, but super important because I'm high risk because of some of that hereditary stuff. So
Yep.
we got to
No,
stay on
makes
top of
sense.
our screenings. Yeah,
So you don't get claustrophobic in the MRI? I know I
I
do.
just I just hum and sing hum hymns and call
You
on
sing
Jesus.
hymns.
There you go.
So
I
you can't
call
even
on
say
Jesus.
hymns now without thinking about a commercial. Hymns. So,
Oh,
She is talking about the religious
hymns
oh,
of
the
hymns,
worship.
religious hymns.
HYMNS.
Well,
Right.
I'm all buttoned up here. So you got your pastor, good Reverend
Right.
Doctor Pastor Pillars here. Any anyway, but that
Right.
that that's important. Like you know, some women and some men have fear of MRIs. Just
Yeah,
have fear going in the tube. They
Hmm.
uh I don't mean to put everybody on front street, but some people in my family say it feels like they're going to die, or they feel like they're in a coffin.
yeah,
Hmm. Yep.
And I just
I don't
want to.
like it. I've taken a sedative, that the doctor prescribed for me, like Xanax or Valium or
yeah.
something like that, just to be able to get it. Yeah.
Oh, Dr. Mel, if I had known I was gonna be on my knees, face down, all of that,
You would have
just
opted
Hold
for
send
on,
me
that,
hold
to
huh?
on.
an
This is in an
MRI.
MRI. This is in an
Yeah, this is
MRI.
This is
we're
an
talking about just
MRI.
the MRI.
Just the
Yeah.
MRI. We
Yeah.
want to make
Yes,
this a wholesome
I
show
Very
agree.
clear.
about health. About health. I d- I do I do want to say shout out to Tracy Walls, my junior high classmate. She says, remember or to get screenings for oral cancer.
Mhm.
Yes, very
So,
true. And those dental visits, you mentioned the dental visits, that's a very important part from age 18, well, from
Yeah,
childhood on up,
right.
making sure you get your yearly cleanings, actually every 6 months cleanings.
mhm,
Yep.
And during those, it's not just they're cleaning, they're actually doing
right,
health checks because there are
Yeah,
many things. And we actually had a whole episode with a dentist where we talked about the health conditions that can be detected just from looking in your mouth, your dentist
right,
right.
looking in your mouth. So,
right.
um, two other things I wanted to mention. That what I just talked about was mainly age 40 to 40, not 40 to 50, but age 50 to 64 is two other things to add in there. If you've been a smoker, and this is
Mm,
super important, if you've been a smoker, it's really important, even if you've quit, to get CAT scans of your chest to look for lung cancer, because that is definitely a cancer that, if detected early, can make a big difference in terms of your outcomes. So that's the age 50, if you've been a smoker, to start getting those CAT scans. And secondly, um, for women who are at risk for osteoporosis, that's um, decreased strength of your bones as you get older. Age 50 is the age to start getting those scans for osteoporosis. And so you can talk to your provider to know if you're a woman who's at risk for osteoporosis.
Wow, that's cool, Dr. Mel. Uh, we have so. What about over 65?
All right. So over 65, everything we already talked about, the blood pressure, the cholesterol, the diabetes, the colon cancer, the lung cancer, all that, the breast cancer, which should continue up until age 74,
Mhm.
and the bone density and screenings, and the men, prostate cancer, all of that. So the only thing you're now adding over 65 is vision and hearing screenings
Mhm.
regularly, and cognitive health screenings to screen for signs of memory impairment. So
So,
that should
so,
start at
so,
age
Dr.
65.
Mel, break that down in layman's terms, cognitive screenings.
Yeah.
Break that
Okay.
down. What are we
Yep.
looking
So
for?
memory. So these are simple tests of memory that your doctor should be doing with you. And then if your provider picks up anything, um, out of the ordinary, then they'll send you for a more in-depth screening that lasts for like 2 hours called a neuropsychiatric exam. But they're just some simple screening tests that the provider can do in the office that just take a few minutes that are part of the screening for memory challenges.
Such as memory challenges. Let's
Like dementia.
dementia,
Yeah.
Alzheimer's, those things.
Right. Yes.
So
But I wanted to distinguish because not every memory impairment means you have dementia.
right.
So that's why I didn't want to lead with dementia, but screening for memory problems first, and then other tests will determine if you might develop dementia later.
Okay. It's kind of scary.
It is, but
That's what
again, keeping on top of it because there are some reversible causes for memory challenges and dementia. One of them is depression. And isolation. So, treating depression and isolation oftentimes improves memory. Hearing loss can also be mistaken for memory loss and dementia.
Mhm.
Chris Christopherson, the actor, had Lyme disease
yeah.
famously, and had developed, originally been diagnosed as having dementia, but when the Lyme disease was treated, he improved. So there are reversible causes. So again, it's important to screen for it, get the entire workup for it, and understand what could be the underlying causes before you assume that it's a non-treatable cause of dementia.
We both smirked because I believe we were both in the same
We,
place with Chris
we were at the same
Christopherson
place.
when he thought he had dementia.
Really? Where was
Right.
that? At the Grammys?
It was at the
It was at a
Grammys.
Grammy week event,
Oh
and he
wow.
was being introduced to people. He's like, "I'm not gonna remember you in 5 minutes." Like he was saying that to
At
He
people.
least
said
he was honest
he
about it.
said that to Lie. Didn't he say that
He
to
said
you?
it to Angie.
Oh,
He said it to
Angie.
my
Right.
sister.
I'm not gonna remember you 5 minutes. But the most brutal thing was early in that week before, nobody sees this. Grammys, the Grammys happens over a week, right?
Right.
And it was another event before that were honoring the Beatles at the same time they were honoring him, and Ringo Starr didn't get the applause he wanted and said, "I guess I got to say I have Alzheimer's."
Oh dang.
Like,
Just so messed
because
up.
Chris Christopherson got a huge round of applause and everybody
Right,
was
right,
saying,
right, right.
and Ringo was like, "I guess I got to come over
Oh,
here and say I had Alzheimer's."
Just so jacked up.
I know it's. I know.
But he
Oh
had
But
he
man.
had
I didn't
Lyme
want our
disease.
audience to see me and Dwayne smirking, thinking that we were thinking
Right,
Right,
this.
right.
right. We were
Yeah, yeah.
both thinking about the same thing when you said Chris Christopherson's like, that was an interesting, the beauty of it was that he did not have Alzheimer's.
Yeah,
That's the
That
beauty
is
of
the beautiful thing.
yeah,
Yes. Yes.
yeah.
it. But he definitely had some memory impairment and he was
Mhm.
aging and I mean, everything else he looked amazing. Like
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
looked amazing
Well,
as an older.
that just goes to show, like I said, Lyme disease is one of the syphilis is another one.
Yeah,
Oh,
right.
wow.
So there are multiple things that are tested for, and in evaluating somebody's memory loss that can potentially be treated.
Hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead.
All right, Dr. Mill. So when we're at these preventative visits and our doctors are talking to us, getting nosy and all up in our in our business,
Hmm.
um, want to talk about our lifestyle and all of that. What are what are some of the most important lifestyle points for us to discuss with them in terms of changes that we need to prioritize?
Yeah. So I think, I kind of think of it in terms of the 5 self-health actions. So The first is your nutrition, what you're eating. I think that's
Okay.
probably the biggest factor that can be changed, right? And have a direct impact on your health. There's a whole movement called food is medicine, right?
Mhm.
There are foods that we eat and put in our body that cause inflammation, cause, clogging of the artery, decline of our mental health, damage to our guts. And so avoiding those foods, processed foods, high sugar foods, and focusing on increasing our plant-based diet, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
focused on green leafy vegetable, all the vegetables, really eating the rainbow. We talked about that a lot. So nutrition is one, hydration, drinking, your 2 liters or more a day. If you don't have kidney problems or heart problems, that's the goal. And then your sleep pattern. Definitely, I remember when we did the first sleep episode, just
Mhm.
people came out of the woodwork in terms of the number of questions and concerns. So many people have problems with their sleep. Talk to your provider about that, because that's like one of the foundational things that,
Mhm.
determine your health long term.
Mhm.
And of course, your exercise, how much you move, and specifically things that are keeping you from moving. So like I mentioned, the knee pain or the back pain or the ankle pain. And because long term, if you don't address those are going to lead to more problems down the line in terms of
Mm.
your overall health and wellness. And then last but not least is the level of stress you're under and the stressors in your life, and
Mhm.
ways to be able to proactively manage stress on a daily basis, without resorting to alcohol or tobacco or substances in general. So
Mm.
all those are lifestyle points of discussion that you can be having with your provider. And I forgot one other thing is your sexual habits and your sexual health. So, condom use, contraceptive use, family planning, all those are also things depending on your age group and your sexual life that you should be bringing up with your physician.
Okay.
Wow. And I think we're gonna have a ticker of that rolling cross. The 5 self-help actions. Th-
Hmm.
those are the things that
There we go.
we can keep. Hey man, those interns get it right sometimes. Sometimes we
Amazing. They're so amazing. The only thing I would have probably asked them to throw in there is the sexual health part, but
okay. That
they
wasn't
can't be
five. That
perfect.
wasn't five. That was
That's
like
6.
that's
Right,
six.
right, right, right.
They can't count that high.
Or
They
that
can't count that
fast.
high. You're asking for too
Uh,
much. Dr.
clearly, clearly, clearly.
So so we got all these things. We're going through the doctor. How important is it that your health insurance is up to date? And how do we get this paid for? How do we get these visits paid for? Yes.
Yeah. So if you have a health plan that you got from the marketplace, Obamacare,
Mm-hmm.
if you're on Medicaid, if you're on
Mm-hmm.
Medicare, or you have commercial insurance for your
Mm-hmm.
job, all of those categories. So there are health plans out there that don't fall into those categories. So that's why I
Right.
specifically mentioned those
Mm-hmm.
categories. If you get a preventive visit, it is free. You pay no copay. Um, and so that's important to know that if it is classified as a preventive visit, you should be paying zero copays. And that also includes costs for all these various screenings that I talked about, that you should
Mm-hmm.
be, that your doctor will be ordering for you depending on your age and your family history, blah, blah, blah. So all those things are also no copays.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
And if you're charged a copay, you should challenge it.
Oh,
Wow.
that's
How
good
do
to
you
know.
do that?
You call up your insurance company and say, "Hey, I this was a preventive screening. I should be having no copay."
Hmm.
Okay.
Now, it is very important to distinguish it. I know this is like in the minutia, but it's different than a preventive visit is a wellness visit.
Right.
As soon as you have a complaint, it
Right.
turns into a problem-oriented visit for which you can pay a copay. So if you go and it's just purely, all the discussion points that we've covered, and the doctor orders routine, the labs and the screenings based on your age, blah blah blah, zero copay. But if you start saying, "Oh, well, I've been getting headaches and I need you to evaluate me because I've been having these headaches, they've been going on for 5 weeks or whatever." At that point, it may no longer be a preventive visit because
Okay.
now, yeah, so that's an important distinction. So if the doctor orders a CAT scan because
Right.
of your head because you have a headache, you probably will have a copay
We'll
for
have
the
a little
CAT scan
goal.
because that's not a preventive
Okay. There you
screening.
go.
So if I'm there for my annual physical and I mention a point of issue, that could change it from
It might,
preventing.
yes.
Okay.
It all depends upon how the doctor ends up coding it and whatnot. Yeah.
Okay.
Or they may say, "Look, let's just keep this. Let's make another appointment to talk about that
Hmm.
problem, so
Yeah.
that visit will remain a pure preventive visit."
Wow.
Okay.
So Dr. Mel, you're at the doctor's office and and
Mhm,
and you've had most of your visit and he's about to walk out. He or she, he
mhm.
or she about to walk out. What are the 5 questions that you need to ask your doctor? Give me 5 things you need to ask your doctor before they leave.
Okay. All right. So now we've moved from a preventive visit into a problem-oriented visit. You're now talking to them about you're there because, you got knee pain or, you know, problem sleeping or a cough for 2 weeks or whatever. So the 5 questions are, what's wrong with me? And even if they don't know what's wrong with you because they have to order some more tests, ask them, what are the 3 leading things that you think might be wrong with me? And
Hmm.
what are you ordering to tell you one way or another and narrow it down to what it is? The
Mhm,
second question is, what do I need if you're prescribing something for me? What do I need to know about the treatment that you're prescribing? How soon is it going to kick in? um, because not everything kicks in like a Tylenol or a Motrin, right? Immediately.
mhm,
Sometimes some things like antidepressants can take a couple weeks to start
Hmm.
to kick in. So you want to know how long that's going to take, and you want to know what the main side effects are that you should be looking out for. So that's the treatment. The third is, what are the alternatives to the prescribed treatment? Because he might tell you or she might tell you about a side effect. And you're like, whoa, I'm not interested in doing that. What are the other options for me apart
Hmm.
from this treatment?
mhm,
Number 3. Number 4, what are the next steps when I leave here? When do you want to see me back? What other providers am I supposed to make an appointment with? What are the next steps?
mhm,
And then lastly, what do I need to be doing for myself at home? Do I need to be, losing 10% of my body weight? Do I need to be checking my blood sugars? Do I need to be walking 30 minutes a day? Do I need to be, not doing screen time an hour before bed so that I can get better sleep? What is it that you need me to do for myself? So, those are the 5 questions you should never leave your provider without getting answered.
So, that's
All
great.
right.
Where can they find that information, Dr. Mel?
They can find it in Excuse Me, Doctor, I've Got What? That's in chapter 7, relating to your doctor, how to be your best advocate. And there's even a checklist that you can take a picture of and have in your phone so that when you go to your doctor, you have that at the ready. So, Excuse Me, Doctor, I've Got What? Taking ownership of your health and making healthcare work for you.
Okay.
By the one and only
Available
Dr.
on
Mel.
Amazon and drmelissaclark.com.
Well, that's a wrap. That
All
brings a
right.
close to our health. I wrote I roadmap to wellness. And excuse me, I'm not well today, but I'll be better tomorrow.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you to my Be Health Empowered family for tuning in. Thank you, Lila. Thank you, Wayne. Please remember that World Central Kitchen donation up at the top if you didn't catch it already. And until I see you again, remember, be wise, be well, and be health empowered. Thanks for tuning in.